doesn't do homework.
Oh, yes, he does.
He's not in school.
Yes,
He's not
he
like 5 years old.
Adults go to school,
The
they
video
tell
of
you.
the shark taking the dump
Oh, the shower's time.
There's been a lot of talk in the news recently about gun violence and gun control laws and how do we take care of preventing things like the Newtown shooting or some of the other things that have happened recently. But one of the things that hasn't really been talked about in this whole discussion is simple gun safety. How do you store a weapon in your home in a safe manner so that people who shouldn't have access to them don't, and people that need to have access to them in an emergency can have access? Tonight, we're going to talk about that. How do you store a gun safely in the home? First, let's talk about the decision to own a personal firearm for self-defense. There's two schools of thought when it comes to owning a firearm. The first school of thought says, I don't need a gun. We have law enforcement officers. They have guns. They're here to protect us. To me, and to a lot of other people, there's two problems with that philosophy. Number one is the delay in response. I pick up the phone, I call 911 at 2 o'clock in the morning, and maybe 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, and if I'm out somewhere in the country, it may be an hour or more before they can respond. That can be fatal in a self-defense situation. The second problem that I have with that viewpoint is people say, I don't need a gun. He's got a gun. He has a gun to protect me. And that's actually incorrect. Law enforcement officials carry firearms to protect themselves. They don't have a gun to protect me or to protect you. It's simply for self-defense for them. So the other school of thought says, well, that's good enough for the law enforcement officer, so why don't I just protect myself? That's my responsibility as a citizen. I'm responsible for protecting myself, and I'm responsible for protecting those that can't protect themselves. There's a lot of talk in the media, studies and statistics and quotes, this many accidents and that many people killed accidentally or whatever the case may be. But there's also been a lot of studies on how many times are firearms used in self-defense. And noted criminologists Kleck and Gertz did several studies in the late 90s and early 2000s. And what they found with these 15 different surveys over that period of time is that the average in the United States for firearms to be used in self-defense is between 2 and 2.5 million occurrences per year. That's a lot of people that needed a gun to defend themselves or defend their loved ones. So you've looked at the argument to own one, to not own one, and you said, okay, I'm going to choose to own a weapon. What's next? What else do you need to think about? Well, before you go out and buy that weapon, you need to do a home evaluation. You need to think about who is regularly in your household that might come across that weapon. Do you have small children? If you have small children, they tend to be curious, they get into things. Probably need to be careful about that. Maybe you don't have small children, but maybe you have someone in your household who uses drugs or who abuses alcohol to a point to where their sense of responsibility is inhibited. That's a concern. And the third category of concern is, like the Newtown shooting, is there someone in the home who is mentally incapable of being responsible around a firearm, who maybe doesn't understand right from wrong because of a condition or can't make a responsible decision. So you have to evaluate who the risk factors are. The last thing you want to think about in the household is, for instance, in my household, I'm a responsible adult. My wife is a responsible adult. Is she willing to receive safety training, to follow safety rules, and to use a weapon in a safe manner? And once you've answered those questions, you can move to the next thought process, which is, okay, I'm going to buy a gun. I've identified who my risk factors are, if any. Where do I store it? So when it comes to storage, the risk factors kind of dictate which one of two ways you go. If you have small children or other people that are a risk category, then the experts recommend storing the weapon in one location securely and the ammunition in a separate location securely, which is great for safety, not so great for a rapid response if you need it. Two other options are to keep the weapon loaded, but use a trigger lock, which, as the name implies, keeps the trigger from operating the weapon, or using a cable that goes through the action lock so that you cannot load a bullet into the gun and operate. But if you don't have people that are at risk, and you have responsible adults, then the best choice is to keep the gun loaded and keep it close to you. And the best option for that is what's called a drawer safe. And just like the name implies, it's a small lockbox. It can fit in a nightstand drawer or a bedside table drawer. and it allows you to have that rapid access at 2 o'clock in the morning when you need the weapon. With the lock boxes like this, there's 3 kinds of locks. The first kind is a key lock, pretty simple. The second kind is an electronic lock that uses a numeric combination to open the box. It's a little more secure than a key. Not anybody can just walk up and open it. But again, in the dark, in a stressful situation, it could be confusing. You could not get the box open. And the latest invention is what's called a biometric lock. And so when you buy the safe, you go through a process that registers your fingerprint. So when you need to open the safe, all you have to do is put your fingerprint on the screen and it opens up right away. You have access to your weapon. Now, if you decided to go with a shotgun or a rifle or something like that, or you have a lot of weapons, then the best bet is a gun vault, which is just a big box you can bolt it to your wall so it can't be taken, and keep your gun safe. So, I'm going to purchase a weapon. I've looked at my risk factors. I know who, where, and how I'm going to store it. I'm good to go, right? I can be safe. Wrong. The last step, and the most important step to safely keeping a firearm in the home, is training. And the first thing that everybody needs to know when using a firearm are the 4 basic weapon safety rules. There's many variations of these rules out there, but they all boil down to the same thing. 1, treat every weapon as if it was loaded. 2, never point the weapon at anything you do not intend to shoot. 3, keep the weapon on safe until you are ready to fire. And 4, keep your finger straight and off the trigger until you intend to fire. If you follow those rules, there will never be an accidental shooting. So you got the 4 weapon safety rules. The next step is research the laws in your state. Every state is different. Some states like California require a written exam before you can purchase a handgun. Some states don't have any rules. Some states require a class. So obviously you want to comply with your state's laws. Once you comply with the state's laws, or if your state does not have any laws, you want to enroll in a basic handgun or firearm safety course. And the National Rifle Association's website can put you in touch with thousands of instructors across our country in different locations so that you can enroll in a safety course. But don't just rest on that course. As time goes on, you want to make sure you get into advanced training. And finally, and most important, practice. Practice, practice. I cannot stress it enough. Practice the 4 weapon safety rules. Every time you come near a weapon, practice the 4 weapon safety rules. Practice with ammunition on the range so that you're comfortable and you're confident that no matter what is going on, when you pull that trigger, that round will hit your target where you intended. And finally, practice handling the weapon so that it becomes like a part of you. When it's natural, when it feels natural in your hand, and in the dangerous situation when things are confused and your adrenaline is flowing, it will be where it's supposed to be. Kind of talked about a lot of information tonight, covered a lot of ground, so let's recap. You've decided to own a weapon for self-defense in the home. When you do that, the first thing you need to do is evaluate for risk. Who's at risk, who's at not, which will dictate how you store that weapon. Once you've made those decisions, make sure that you abide by any state regulations, memorize the 4 weapon safety rules, use them every time, and practice until you're comfortable and confident. And if you follow that layout and those guidelines, you will have added another layer of self-defense to your home in a safe manner that will protect you and your loved ones without hurting innocents or those who shouldn't have access to the weapon.